Hey everyone, welcome back to Horsetooth Cinema. And today I've got an interesting, different kind of review format. So as I may have mentioned a couple of times in my videos, I am American, of course, as you can tell by my accent, but I live in Ireland. It's been my home for the last 3 years, and I don't think I've reviewed any Irish movies on my channel, at least not that I can remember. Irish cinema is something that is very much new to me. It's something that I'm trying to ease into and kind of discover more about. And it just so happened that in my area there were a few new Irish movies playing recently, and so I thought I would go ahead and see a couple of them and review them. Just from what I've seen, I really think there is a lot of talent coming from, Ireland. And I think a lot of the time it does go a little bit overlooked by some other countries. So I'm going to be reviewing two films today. They're Here Before by Stacey Gregg and You Are Not My Mother by Kate Dolan. Alright, so we're going to start off with Here Before. This is the directorial debut of Stacey Gregg, who is a playwright, and it stars Andrea Riseborough as a mother who her daughter has passed away. And then years later, new neighbors move in, and they have a daughter that bears a striking resemblance to her daughter who she lost, and Andrea Riseborough's character starts becoming a bit obsessed with her, and there's questions over whether this is sort of a psychological thriller or whether there might be more supernatural things at hand here. So overall, I will say I enjoyed this movie. I'll talk about the pros first before I talk about the issues I had with it. On a technical aspect, I will say this is very well made for the most part, especially for a directorial debut. The movie really does a great job of creating this like moody atmosphere that I think really goes into the mindset of grief that this woman is clearly feeling. I feel like it's constantly raining in this movie, which is definitely something that you get up in Belfast, where this movie is set. Also, I want to say I really like the score for this movie. This was done by, I believe, the same composer that did Saint Maud, and I believe it's only their second score. But yeah, very talented. This is, it reminded me a lot of Jonny Greenwood's score for You Were Never Really Here, which I really, really like. It uses a lot of interesting instrumentation and a lot of uncomfortable sounds that really serve well for a psychological thriller and kind of leave you, wondering where the film is going. And sort of leading you that way in a very interesting and intentional way. And I feel like in some ways the score almost let me know where the movie was going better than the direction did overall. And I'll talk a little bit about issues I have, I guess, with the writing and some of the direction as well in my issues with the film. But I think the biggest strength of this movie is the wonderful performance by Andrea Riseborough. You might know her from movies like Possessor or Mandy, and she's fantastic here. She's a really, really underrated actress, and I believe she's not Northern Irish, and which is really impressive because her accent is perfect. Overall, she does what you expect from a psychological thriller like this. She does a really good job of sort of, drawing you into her character, kind of deceiving the audience into thinking that she's stable, and then you slowly see her unravel as the movie goes on, as she kind of gets closer and closer to her neighbor's daughter. Now I'll get into my issues with the movie, of which there were a few. I think in terms of the film, there are things in kind of the direction a little bit, but mostly in the writing, where you could kind of tell this is a first feature. For a story about a couple who has, lost a daughter, and, there might be supernatural elements at play with this new little girl that they're getting closer to, as well, or the possibility that this is in the woman's head, this is a psychological thriller. We really don't see that much in terms of the character of the husband, and I thought the husband in particular was really, really underwritten. I would like to have been able to explore his state of mind a little bit more. And I think this next one is just more of an issue with the direction, but I really, I read reviews talking about how, as an audience member, people were very unsure whether this is sort of a psychological type thriller, or if this was more of a horror movie with some supernatural elements. But I'm sorry, I understood that was a part of the plot of the movie, but I never felt anything that was hinting at the supernatural. Maybe with the score a little bit, but in terms of the direction, I just wasn't really given a lot to kind of be struggling with, where are they going here? I wasn't really that intrigued by it. I felt very assured of where they were going, and the ending just kind of let me down in a lot of ways. I felt like there were really interesting ideas that they were hinting at, but they never really felt explored and fleshed out to me in the way that would have kind of satisfied my viewing experience. But overall, I'd recommend it. I actually think this is a pretty impressive feature for a first-time director, Stacey Gregg. So, I just want to congratulate her on the film, and this is a movie that I think is worth your time. Next, I'm going to be talking about You're Not My Mother, which is directed by Kate Dolan. And this movie I liked a lot more. This movie kind of explores similar themes in some ways, but it's quite different. So the premise is that this girl, I think her name is Char, her mother one day mysteriously goes missing, and then when she comes back, she feels very off, not quite the same. And when she starts noticing a lot of the things, the horror elements that are wrong with her mother, it starts getting into a lot of the dark secrets in her family history that's tied into a lot with Irish folklore. Compared to Here Before, I thought kind of the ideas that were, you know, trying to be expressed in the movie were much more fleshed out in You Are Not My Mother. I think it's a really interesting exploration of motherhood, kind of a la The Babadook. And it adds this element of sort of a child being neglected, and this main character, Char, is very independent. We kind of see what her life is like, you know, outside of the relationship with her mother, and kind of how, you know, that absence of a strong relationship has led to the place where she is. There's also really good body horror in this movie that I wasn't expecting at all, and I love when movies throw that in. Kind of like Alien or something, where, you know, it has this element of body horror that it's just kind of not exactly the forefront of the movie, but in the background. There are two scenes in particular that I thought were really, really well done along that line, particularly one involving a broken ankle. And the way it tied in a little bit with the mother and these like horror conditions that she has after she returns, it reminded me a little bit of Cronenberg's The Brood, kind of the way they tie that into the whole family dynamic and sort of the struggles that people have with parenthood. Yeah, the acting's really good. I really like the lead actress that plays Char, as well as the mother. There's a dance scene between them that is really, really well done, and it's something that has kind of become a little bit of a trope, but it's something that I still love, and it's the idea of you have a dance scene, but it's kind of fucked up. Like, there's a lot of really dark connotations to it, kind of like if you've ever seen Ex Machina. It's very similar to that. And a lot like Here Before, the sound design and the score is really, really effective in producing a lot of the horror reactions. Not in the, you know, modern horror, like where they just play a really loud noise every time there's a jump scare. It was really refreshing the way the horror actually built up. So yeah, really well done there. And also there's a humor to this movie that I really, really enjoyed. People were actually laughing a lot during the screening. And a lot of the laughs come from sort of the awkwardness of, you know, kind of high school relationships, both with friends and bullies. This movie definitely has like a Carrie quality to it, where it's really focused for a good portion of it on the way that the lead character is bullied, and then you get into the horror later. In terms of issues with the film, I think the bully note kind of transitions nicely into one of my main issues with the film, which is the bullies themselves. They're a bit cartoony. In Carrie, I think they spend a little bit more time with the bullies, and so you kind of feel, even though you might not fully understand why they're being as mean as they are, you understand them a bit better, and they at least feel like real people that could exist at your high school. Whereas this one, they sort of feel just a little bit unrealistic to me. Just the writing for them was a tad on the nose. Also, the climax in the movie felt just a bit on the nose. The climactic moment, I won't spoil it, but there's a confrontation between sort of the lead character and the horror elements of this movie, and the line of dialogue that she says when it's that very climactic moment, I mean, it's kind of funny. I could see it being sort of a horror comedy thing, but I'm not sure that's what they were going for. I almost think that it was actually meant to be a bit climactic, and it just felt, yeah, a bit on the nose, just a bit too much of a stretch. Again, it could have been horror comedy, but it didn't totally work for me. But overall, I really did have a good time with this one. I was at a screening with a lot of people who worked on the film, and I could tell because when, you know, the credits rolled, people were like applauding at certain names, and that was really, really cool. Even though I didn't know anyone there, because Ireland is such a small place, it almost kind of felt like people that you might just know down the street were just working on this movie, which is really cool. So if I had to grade these two films, I would give Here Before 3 stars and You Are Not My Mother 3.5 stars. I think they're both really worth your time, but I think I prefer You're Not My Mother just a little bit more. But anyway, that's the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video, you can like this video down below and subscribe to the channel. I've got more content coming out soon, and I will see you guys in the next one. See ya.